The neon sign above the entrance read 11:58 p.m. when Nora Chen finally allowed herself to breathe. Her double shift at Moonflower had been brutal. 16 hours of navigating the dining room with practiced precision, translating orders between English and Korean, smiling through the bone-deep exhaustion that settled into her joints. Her feet screamed inside worn black sneakers, the same pair she'd been nursing for 8 months, because new ones weren't in the budget yet. 4 tables had just settled their checks, leaving tips that might actually cover both her electric bill and groceries this week. She folded the cash carefully into her apron pocket and leaned against the host's stand near the entrance, allowing her shoulders to drop for the first time all night. The restaurant was transitioning into its late-night rhythm. Most diners had departed, but a handful remained scattered across the space, lingering over macchioli and sweet rice cakes. The kitchen crew had already started breaking down their stations, the sharp clatter of metal and running water mixing with muted K-pop playing from someone's phone speaker. Koreatown never fully quieted, but this late at night, the energy softened into something more intimate, more dangerous. Outside the restaurant's wide windows, taxis glided past with unusual leisure. The November air had turned cold and damp, streetlights reflecting off rain-slicked pavement in wavering amber lines. Earlier drizzle had left the sidewalks mirror black and treacherous. Nora was mentally dividing her tips between bills when movement in her peripheral vision pulled her attention upward. The man at the corner booth was standing. Dojin Park. She knew his name the way everyone working at Moonflower knew his name, with a mixture of reverence and healthy fear. He arrived every Tuesday and Friday evening, always commanding the same secluded corner table, always accompanied by sharp-dressed men who spoke exclusively in rapid Korean punctuated by deliberate silences. The owner himself, Mr. Choi, personally greeted Dojun at the door with a bow so deep it looked painful. The kitchen staff prepared his sam and galbi with obsessive attention to detail. The premium soju he preferred never, ever appeared itemized on any receipt. Nora had served his table exactly once, 3 months ago, when the regular server had called out with the flu. She remembered the experience with crystalline clarity, the way his intense gaze had lifted from the menu to assess her face for precisely 2 seconds, before returning to the printed Korean text. Polite but utterly impenetrable, his presence radiating the kind of controlled authority that made the air feel heavier. Even in an immaculate charcoal suit with subtle pinstripes, he'd looked weary in a way expensive tailoring couldn't disguise. There was something haunted in the set of his shoulders, like a man carrying debts that couldn't be calculated in currency. Tonight, Dojin stood flanked by 3 associates, men with military posture and designer watches, checking phones and buttoning suit jackets with synchronized efficiency. They moved toward the exit with the fluid certainty of people accustomed to deference, to doors opening and crowds parting. They owned this territory. Maybe not legally, but in every way that mattered after midnight in Manhattan's Koreatown. Nora dropped her gaze back to the bills in her apron, silently counting 43, 61, 78 when something near the entrance disrupted her peripheral awareness. The valet. Not Jung-soo, the regular valet who'd worked Moonflower's door for 5 years. This guy was different, new. She'd seen him maybe twice before, both times appearing uncertain in the standard black vest and crisp bow tie that seemed to strangle him. Tonight, he looked worse than uncertain. He looked terrified. Sweat gleamed on his temples and upper lip despite the November chill seeping through the entrance every time the door opened. His hands trembled visibly as he clutched a key fob, fingers slipping on the smooth black plastic. Nora's frown deepened. Something felt fundamentally wrong about this picture. The way his eyes kept darting toward the street, then back to the restaurant interior, never settling. The way he refused to meet anyone's gaze, not the hostess who offered him her standard professional smile, not Mr. Choi who passed within 3 feet of him, not even the customers he was supposedly serving. Dojin Park pushed through the glass entrance door, 3 associates following in tight formation. The valet's spine went rigid instantly, and he nearly fumbled the key fob onto the wet pavement. "Your car, sir!" The words came out pitched too high, rushed and breathless. He was already moving, practically jogging toward the matte black Genesis G90 parked directly in front of Moonflower's entrance, positioned like a predator beneath the streetlight. Dojin followed at his characteristic measured pace, turning his head slightly to murmur something in Korean to the man on his right, words Nora couldn't distinguish over the ambient city noise. She should have returned to her closing duties. Should have started wiping down tables, counting silverware, preparing the register tape for Mr. Choi to review. But her feet carried her toward the entrance instead, pulled by an instinct she couldn't name, only feel a cold certainty settling in her gut that something was catastrophically wrong. The valet brought the Genesis around with jarring speed, too fast for the wet streets. He yanked open the driver's door and practically leaped backward, extending the key fob like it was burning his palm. Dojin reached forward, his expression neutral, nodding once in wordless dismissal. That's when Nora saw it. Through the driver's side window, illuminated by Moonflower's exterior lighting and the street lamp's amber glow, a small LED display glowed red beneath the dashboard. Not a manufacturer's detail. Not standard equipment. A bright crimson blink 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 pattern that didn't belong anywhere near the steering column of a luxury vehicle. Her late brother Marcus had worked demolition for 3 years before the accident had come home countless evenings with stories about controlled explosives, about timer mechanisms and detonation sequences. He'd taught her to recognize danger in unexpected places. And that blinking red LED was screaming danger in a frequency only she seemed to hear. Her body reacted before conscious thought could catch up. "Don't get in!" Nora's voice tore through the quiet street as she broke into a dead run. Her worn sneakers slapped wetly against rain-slicked pavement. Dojin's head whipped toward her, his hand already gripping the doorframe, body half-turned to enter the vehicle. She didn't slow down. She grabbed his arm with both hands and yanked backward with every ounce of desperate strength she possessed. He reacted on pure instinct, twisting sharply to break her grip, his other hand rising defensively as trained reflexes kicked in to neutralize the perceived threat. But Nora held on, her fingers digging into expensive wool and the hard muscle beneath. She stumbled when he shoved against her grip, nearly losing her balance on the slick concrete. "There's something under the dashboard," she gasped, pointing frantically at the Genesis's dark interior with one shaking hand while maintaining her grip on his arm with the other. A timer. Red LED. Blinking. It shouldn't be there. Nothing in that car should look like that. Dojin froze completely. His sharp stare locked onto hers with laser focus, not searching for deception or insanity, but for certainty, for conviction. She held his gaze, willing him to see the truth in her expression, the absolute knowledge that death was waiting 3 feet away inside that vehicle. Then his focus shifted past her shoulder, narrowing with predatory intensity on the Genesis, specifically on the driver's seat area where her finger still pointed. One of his associates stepped forward immediately, tall, lean, with the coiled readiness of military training evident in every line of his body. "Boss?" The single word carried a dozen questions. Dojun raised one hand in a gesture so minimal it was almost invisible, just 2 fingers lifted, palm facing outward. "Minjun, get everyone back. 5 meters. Right now." Wait, did you catch that? Nora just saved a stranger's life and walked straight into a war she didn't even know existed. Where are you watching from? Drop a comment below. If you're already hooked, hit that subscribe button now. Trust me, this story only gets more intense from here. Drop A in the comments if that explosion scene got your heart racing. And real talk, would you have grabbed his arm? Or would you have minded your own business? Let me know below. Like this video and subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. This is just the beginning. Let's continue. The explosion turned night into day for exactly 3 seconds. Nora felt the concussive force before she heard the sound, a physical wall of pressure that slammed into her chest and knocked the air from her lungs. Dojin's body collided with hers, both of them hitting wet pavement hard enough to leave bruises. He covered her completely, his weight pressing her into the cold concrete as debris rained down around them. Metal fragments, glass shards, burning rubber. The heat washed over them in waves, followed immediately by choking black smoke that tasted like chemicals and death. When the world stopped spinning, Nora realized she couldn't hear anything except a high-pitched whine drilling through her skull. Dojin was speaking, she could see his mouth moving, but the words were lost in the ringing that filled her ears. He pulled her upright with surprising gentleness, his hands checking her shoulders, her arms, searching for injuries she couldn't feel through the shock. The Genesis G90 was a skeleton of twisted metal engulfed in flames. The valet was gone, simply vanished into Manhattan's shadows like he'd never existed. Then came the sirens. Dozens of them, converging from every direction. The next 2 hours passed in fragments. NYPD patrol cars arrived first, officers establishing a perimeter with yellow tape that seemed absurdly inadequate for containing what had just happened. Then came the FBI, agents in dark suits and federal windbreakers materializing with frightening efficiency. Car bombs in Manhattan meant automatic federal jurisdiction, meant terrorism protocols, meant questions Nora didn't have answers for. They separated her from Dojun immediately. A female agent with kind eyes and an unyielding grip guided Nora to a quiet corner near an idling ambulance, away from the burning wreckage that firefighters were desperately trying to contain. The agent's questions came rapid fire. What did you see? How did you know? Are you affiliated with Mr. Park? Have you had any unusual contacts in the past week? The words blurred together. Nora's hands wouldn't stop shaking. I saw a timer, she heard herself saying, voice distant and unfamiliar. Red LED. Blinking. My brother worked demolition. He taught me. Her throat closed. Marcus had been dead for 2 years. Why was she talking about him in present tense? Min-jun appeared beside her like a shadow given form. He was speaking to the FBI agent in low, urgent tones, flashing identification that made the woman's expression shift from interrogation mode to something more cautious. Nora caught fragments, witness protection concerns, and credible threats, and immediate relocation necessary. Wait. Nora tried to stand, but her legs weren't cooperating properly. I need to give a statement. I saw the valet. I can describe him. You will, Min-jun said, his English accented but precise. Tomorrow, somewhere safer than a crime scene with your face visible to every news camera in 5 blocks. He gestured. And Nora's stomach dropped when she saw the media vans already setting up behind the police perimeter, cameras with telephoto lenses pointed directly at them. Dojun materialized through the chaos, his designer suit torn at the shoulder, a thin cut above his left eyebrow bleeding sluggishly. He looked at Nora with an intensity that made her forget about the cameras, the agents, the burning car. You saved my life. 4 words, delivered with absolute certainty. Now let me return the favor. Get in the car. I don't even know you. The protest sounded weak even to her own ears. You know enough. He nodded toward the wreckage. They missed tonight. They won't miss twice. The black SUV had tinted windows so dark they seemed to absorb light. Nora found herself in the back seat before she could formulate a coherent objection, Min-jun sliding in beside her while Dojun took the front passenger position. The driver pulled away from the scene with practiced efficiency, merging into late-night traffic like they were just another vehicle instead of fleeing a federal crime scene. Manhattan blurred past the windows. Nora tried to track their route, but shock had fractured her sense of direction. They crossed into Tribeca. She recognized the converted warehouses, the cobblestone streets, and pulled into an underground garage beneath a building that looked like it cost more per square foot than most people earned in a year. Where are we? Her voice cracked. Somewhere they can't reach you, Min-jun said simply. The penthouse elevator required a key card and thumbprint. 23 floors up, the doors opened onto a space that made Nora's entire apartment building seem microscopic by comparison. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Hudson River, furniture that belonged in design magazines, art on the walls that might be originals, the kind of wealth that operated by rules she'd never learned. I need to call my landlord, Nora said, reality crashing back. My shift tomorrow starts at 11. You need to sleep. Dojun's voice carried absolute authority. Min-jun will explain everything in the morning. 3 days. Give me 3 days to handle this, and then you can go back to your life. But Nora saw the look Min-jun and Dojun exchanged brief, weighted with meaning she couldn't decipher, and she knew with cold certainty that nothing about her life would ever be the same. She woke 16 hours later in a bedroom larger than her entire studio apartment, wrapped in sheets that felt like liquid silk against her skin. Sunlight streamed through windows she didn't remember. For one blissful moment, she thought it had all been a nightmare. Then she saw the bandages on her palms where pavement had torn skin, heard voices speaking rapid Korean outside the door, smelled expensive coffee and her own fear sweat still clinging to yesterday's clothes. Min-jun was waiting in the hallway, looking freshly showered and professionally concerned. Good morning, Miss Chen. We need to talk about why you can't go home. He showed her the phone screen. Her face from Moonflower's security footage circulated through God knew what networks, text in Chinese and English beneath. $75,000. Alive preferred. Nora's legs gave out. Minjun caught her before she hit the marble floor. 3 days, she whispered. He promised 3 days. Minjun's expression was gentle but inflexible. That was before they put a bounty on your head. Now we don't know how long this will take. He helped her to a chair, his grip firm and oddly comforting. The valet from last night? Vanished. Probably a disposable hire who left the country within hours. The FBI has his description circulating through Interpol, but these people know how to disappear. He paused, letting that sink in. But Miss Chen? You're not leaving this building until we're certain you'll survive the attempt. 3 days in the Tribeca penthouse felt like 3 years. Nora had worn a path in the hardwood between the guest bedroom and the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Hudson, watching the city continue without her. Her phone sat on the kitchen counter, powered off per Minjun's explicit instructions. Her life existed in a 900-square-foot prison decorated with art she couldn't afford to look at. On the morning of day 3, Minjun found her in the kitchen trying to make sense of the commercial-grade espresso machine. He carried a tablet under his arm, his expression grimmer than usual. "Show me," Nora said before he could speak. "Whatever you're about to sugarcoat, just show me." He set the tablet on the marble counter and stepped back. The image loaded slowly, giving her time to register each devastating detail. Her face from Moonflower's security camera, grainy but unmistakably her, mouth open mid-shout, arm extended toward Dojun. The photo had been cleaned up, enhanced, circulated. Below it, text in Chinese characters and English translation. $75,000 USD. Female, late 22nds. Approximately 5'6". Alive preferred for interrogation. Contact verified channels only. The smaller text made her stomach turn. Suspected connection to park organization. High-value target. Exercise extreme caution subject. Demonstrates advanced situational awareness. "They think I'm with you," Nora whispered. "They think I work for Dojin. The triad doesn't understand heroism." Minjun's voice was flat, clinical. "They can't comprehend why a stranger would risk her life for someone she doesn't know. So they've created a narrative that makes sense in their world. You're either an operative or an asset. Either way, you're valuable alive because you might have information about our operations." Nora's hands shook as she pushed the tablet away. "Can you contact them? Explain I just saw something wrong and reacted. I'm nobody. I don't know anything about..." Her phone buzzed, still powered off on the counter, but vibrating with an incoming call. Minjun and Nora locked eyes. "That's not possible," she said. Minjun was already moving, pulling on latex gloves before touching the device. He powered it on with careful precision, checked the caller ID, and his jaw tightened. "Moonflower, Mr. Choi's personal line." Nora grabbed for the phone, but Minjun held it away. "Don't. If they've compromised your employer," the voicemail notification appeared. Minjun put it on speaker. Mr. Choi's voice came through broken and terrified, speaking in Korean first, then switching to English. "Nora, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. They came tonight. Fire. So much fire. Ji-won, Marcus the line cook, Young Hee from hosting, they're in the hospital. Burns. Smoke inhalation. The investigators, they're saying accelerant, gasoline, professional job." His voice cracked. "They left a message on the wall. In English. For you. They said this is just the beginning until you..." The message cut off. Nora's legs stopped working. She slid down the kitchen cabinet to the floor, the imported tile cold against her spine. 3 people. 3 people are hurt because I grabbed someone's arm. 3 people are hurt because the triad are animals who use terror as currency. Dojin's voice cut through her spiral. She hadn't heard him enter, but he was there suddenly, crouching in front of her with that unreadable expression. "You saved lives that night. Don't let them twist that into something you need to feel guilty about." "I don't have a job anymore," Nora heard herself say, the reality cascading. "Moonflower is gone. I can't pay rent. I can't." The numbers started adding up, the financial devastation piling on top of the physical danger. "My landlord is going to evict me. I'm 2 weeks from homeless, and now I can't even go back to my apartment to get my things because there's 75,000 reasons for someone to put a bullet in me. She started laughing, high and broken. 3 days ago, I was worried about making rent. Now I'm worried about staying alive long enough to be homeless. Dojin stood, disappeared into the kitchen, and returned with expensive whiskey in a crystal glass. Drink. Nora did. It burned perfectly, cutting through the hysteria. I need to do something with my hands, she announced, standing with sudden determination. Something I can control. She moved to the refrigerator, pulling out ingredients with deliberate focus. Gochugaru, doenjang, scallions. This time she kept it simple, quick pickled vegetables, the kind her mother used to make when emotions ran too high for complex cooking. Cucumbers, daikon, rice vinegar. The sharp, clean work of slicing, the satisfying crunch under her knife. 10 minutes of focused motion to center herself. Dojin watched from the doorway, silent. My mother died 3 years ago, Nora said without looking up. Her knife work was precise, meditative. Stage 4 breast cancer. By the time they caught it, treatment was just delaying the inevitable. The medical debt after insurance nearly destroyed us. My brother Marcus tried to help. Picked up extra demolition shifts, worked himself to exhaustion. Then the accident steel beam, faulty rigging, 30-second fall. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. I've been alone since I was 19, working double shifts, sending money I don't have to collection agencies, keeping my head down and staying invisible. That was the plan. Stay invisible. Survive. Maybe someday save enough to reopen my mother's jazz club. Ella's place. She lost it when the medical bills came due. I know, Dojin said quietly. Nora's knife stilled. What? I had you investigated the morning after the explosion. Standard protocol when someone saves my life or tries to kill me, I need to know which. He moved to the counter, pulled out his phone, and showed her a file with her name on it. Her entire life reduced to data points. Your mother Eleanor, Ella Chen, former jazz singer. Brother Marcus Chen, construction worker. Current debts across 3 collection agencies. Your mother's shuttered club on 127th Street. Nora's vision blurred with fury. You investigated me like I'm a criminal. I investigated you like someone in my world who needs protecting. Dojin's voice remained calm, infuriatingly rational. The Triad is expanding into Manhattan territories that Korean organizations have controlled for 30 years. This isn't random violence. This is war. And you saved the life of someone they very badly wanted dead. That makes you a player whether you want to be or not. He pulled something from his jacket pocket, a cashier's check, made out to the 3 collection agencies, the full amount. I can make your debt disappear with 1 phone call, Dojin said. Clear your burden completely. Let you start over. Nora looked at the check, at the amount that had strangled her for 3 years. Then she picked it up and tore it in half. I'm not some charity case, she said, voice steady despite the tears on her face. I survive on my own terms. That's what I do. Dojin studied her for a long moment, then nodded once. Admirable. Foolish, but admirable. He collected the torn check pieces. The debt makes you vulnerable, gives them leverage, but if that's your choice, I'll respect it. Min Jun burst through the penthouse door, phone pressed to his ear, face ashen. Boss, we have a problem. The Triad just hit your shipping warehouse in Red Hook. 5 men down, 2 critical. And they left something. He turned his phone screen. Spray painted across the burned warehouse wall in red letters 6 feet high. The black girl dies screaming. Below it, Nora's face again. Larger, surrounded by target crosshairs. Dojin's expression went cold and lethal. How long ago? 20 minutes. Fire department is still on scene. NYPD found this. Minjun swiped to another image, a note in English and Korean. Every day she breathes, we burn something you love. Return the witness, or lose everything. Nora felt the room tilt. They want you to give me to them. Not going to happen. Dojin's voice carried absolute certainty, and something darker underneath. How many more people have to get hurt? Nora's whisper cut through the tension. How many more? The penthouse lights died. Emergency backup kicked in after 3 seconds of absolute darkness, bathing everything in dim red glow. Min Jun had his gun out instantly. That's not a power outage. Someone cut the building's electrical. From 23 floors below, The emergency stairwell door alarm began to scream. The stairwell alarm proved to be building maintenance responding to the power surge, not a triad death squad. But the false alarm cost Nora what little nerve she had left. She spent that night on the guest room floor, back against the wall, steak knife from Dojun's kitchen clutched in shaking hands. Sleep was a luxury for people who weren't worth $75,000 dead or alive. The call came at 6:47 a.m. Min-jun answered on the second ring, listened without speaking, then handed the phone to Nora with an expression that told her everything before he said a word. "Your landlord, Mr. Kowalski. He's demanding to speak with you." Nora took the phone with numb fingers. "Hello? Miss Chen." Mr. Kowalski's voice trembled with barely controlled fury. "Last night, at approximately 2 a.m., your apartment building was the target of what police are calling a drive-by shooting. 27 bullet holes in the facade. Your studio apartment specifically was hit with 16 rounds. Your neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, is in the hospital with a heart attack from the trauma. Her grandson was sleeping on her couch, 6 years old. Miss Chen. 6. The phone nearly slipped from Nora's grip. Is he? He's alive. They're all alive. No thanks to you." Mr. Kowalski's anger broke into something raw. "I don't know what you're involved in, and I don't want to know. But I've owned that building for 32 years, and I've never had guns fired at it. You're evicted. Effective immediately. I'm boxing up your belongings and putting them in storage. You have 1 week to arrange pickup before I dispose of everything." The line went dead. Nora sat motionless, the phone still pressed to her ear. A 6-year-old boy. She'd endangered a 6-year-old boy by existing in the wrong place at the wrong time. "I need to leave," she said, voice hollow. "I need to get far away from New York before someone else. Running makes you an easier target." Dojun appeared in the doorway, looking fresh despite the early hour. No protection, no resources, no support network. The triad would find you within 72 hours, and you'd die alone. "Then what do you suggest?" "I have no job, no apartment, no money, no future." Nora's laugh came out broken. "I'm completely dependent on you, and I hate it. I hate every second of it. So change it." Dojun moved into the room, commanding attention despite the quiet delivery. "Stop accepting charity and start earning your keep." "Doing what?" "I'm a waitress. I'm not qualified for—" "You're a cultural bridge." He cut her off. "You speak English natively. You understand American business customs. You've worked in service industries long enough to read people and situations. And you spotted a car bomb that 3 trained security professionals missed. That's not luck. That's intelligence and instinct." Nora stared at him. "You want to hire me?" "I want to employ you. There's a difference." Dojun pulled out his phone, opened a document, and handed it to her. "Cultural liaison and American business strategist. $5,200, monthly salary. Health insurance. Legal contract through legitimate business entities. You'll advise on my American expansion operations, help navigate business culture differences, and use that sharp eye of yours to identify problems before they become catastrophic." Nora read the contract twice, searching for the trap, the hidden clause that would turn her into property. "Why?" "Because I need someone who understands both worlds and has no loyalty to either. Someone outside Korean hierarchy who can tell me the truth without fearing disrespect charges. Someone who saved my life and proved they have good judgment under pressure." He paused. "And because watching you destroy yourself with pride is wasteful when you could be useful instead." "Useful?" Nora repeated. The word should have stung, but somehow it didn't. Useful was honest. Useful was better than helpless. "I want it in writing," she said finally. "Every term, every expectation, and if I want to quit, I walk away clean. No obligations, no debts, no threats." "Agreed." Dojun nodded. "Min-jun handles all legitimate business contracts. He'll have everything formalized by this afternoon." The contract arrived 4 hours later, dense with legal language but surprisingly straightforward. Nora read every word twice, looking for the invisible chains. Then she signed. The work started immediately. Dojun owned 3 Korean barbecue restaurants, 2 import-export companies, and a real estate portfolio spanning Manhattan and Queens. All legitimate, all documented, all carefully separated from whatever else he did in shadows. Nora dove into operational reports, customer feedback, financial statements. She discovered she had a natural talent for seeing patterns, for identifying where cultural misunderstandings were costing money and goodwill. 2 weeks in, Dojun took her to Hana Grill in Midtown. The head chef, a stern woman named Sun Hee, initially regarded Nora with barely concealed suspicion, a black outsider brought in by the boss, probably some affirmative action gesture. But then Nora started talking about the disconnect between what Korean customers expected and what American customers understood, about fusion possibilities that honored tradition while expanding appeal, about her mother's jazz club and how food could tell cultural stories without translation. Your galbi is perfect technically, Nora said, watching Sunhee work. But you're losing non-Korean customers because they don't understand the experience. What if you offered a build your own Sam section on the menu with instructions? Make it interactive, educational. Let people feel like they're discovering something instead of being tested on knowledge they don't have. Sunhee's knife paused mid-cut. She looked at Nora with new assessment. You understand food culture. I understand being on the outside trying to find my way in. Nora met her gaze steadily. I've spent my whole life bridging gaps I didn't build. This is just another bridge. Sunhee smiled then. First genuine warmth Nora had seen from anyone in Dojun's organization. Come back next week. We'll experiment. In the car heading back to Tribeca, Nora felt something unfamiliar blooming in her chest. Purpose, possibility, the sense that maybe she could build something real from this nightmare. You're good at this, Dojun said, his voice carrying a note she couldn't quite identify. Not surprise, but something warmer. Better than I expected. Don't sound so shocked, Nora replied, but she was smiling. I'm full of surprises. Their eyes met in the rearview mirror, held a beat too long. Something electric passed between them, unspoken and dangerous. Dojun looked away first, jaw tightening. That evening, Minjun found Nora in the penthouse kitchen, reviewing restaurant reports on her new laptop, another tool of employment that had appeared on her desk. Can I give you advice? Minjun asked carefully. Can I stop you? He smiled slightly. Boss doesn't let people close. Not since his wife died 4 years ago. Car accident, at least. That's what the official report said. But the timing was suspicious. He's been ice ever since. Nora's chest tightened. Why are you telling me this? Because he looks at you differently, talks to you differently, and that makes you either very safe or very dangerous. Minjun's expression turned serious. Be careful, Miss Chen. Men like him, when they finally let someone in, they don't do it halfway, and neither do their enemies. Before Nora could respond, Dojun's phone rang in the other room. She heard his voice shift from casual to lethal in a single syllable. He appeared in the doorway seconds later, face carved from stone. Red Hook Warehouse. They're hitting it now. Multiple attackers. Professional team. We need to move. I'm coming with you, Nora said before thinking. Absolutely not. People are getting hurt because of me. I need to see. You need to stay alive. Dojun's voice was final. That's non-negotiable. He left with Minjun and 4 others, moving with military efficiency. The penthouse felt enormous and empty once they were gone. Nora waited, counting seconds that stretched into hours, until finally her phone buzzed. Minjun. Boss is fine. 5 men injured but stable. Warehouse is gone. Coming back. She exhaled for what felt like the first time in hours. Dojun returned at 2:47. A.M. Nora heard the elevator chime, the heavy door sliding open. She'd been sitting in the darkened living room for hours, unable to sleep, watching the city lights blur through exhausted tears she refused to acknowledge. He walked in and the sight of him made her breath catch. His white dress shirt was no longer white, rust-colored stains splattered across the front, sleeves rolled up to reveal more blood on his forearms. A cut above his left eyebrow oozed sluggishly, already swelling. His knuckles were split and raw. He moved like every step hurt but refused to show it. 5 men, he said without preamble, voice rougher than she'd ever heard it. Burns, smoke inhalation. Too critical but stable. Could have been worse if they hadn't evacuated fast. He pulled off his ruined tie, dropped it on the floor. They left you another message. He showed her the photo on his phone. Spray painted across the burned warehouse wall, illuminated by floodlights, and photographed by what looked like FBI crime scene investigators. The black girl dies screaming in letters 10 feet high. Below it, her face again, larger than life, surrounded by target crosshairs that looked almost artistic in their precision. Smaller text beneath in Chinese and English. Every day she breathes costs you more. Stop protecting her or lose everything. This is because of me. Nora's voice came out strangled. People are getting hurt because 3 weeks ago I grabbed your arm instead of minding my own business. Dojun crossed the space between them in 3 strides, caught her wrists before she could pull away. His grip was firm but careful, mindful of his split knuckles against her skin. People are hurt because the Triad are animals who use terror as currency, because they're expanding into territory they have no right to claim, and they're willing to burn everything to take it. You saw danger and you acted. That makes you brave, not guilty. Remember that. His gaze held hers, intense and unwavering. You saved my life. Don't let them twist that into something you need to apologize for. Nora's vision blurred. You're bleeding. I'm aware. Sit down. She pulled her wrists free gently. Let me clean that cut before it gets infected. She found the first aid kit in the master bathroom hospital-grade supplies that suggested this wasn't his first violent night. When she returned to the living room, Dojun had collapsed onto the leather couch, head tipped back, eyes closed. For the first time since she'd met him, he looked genuinely exhausted. Nora sat beside him, opened antiseptic wipes with shaking hands. This is going to sting. It already does. But he opened his eyes, watched her with that unsettling focus as she carefully cleaned the cut above his eyebrow. Blood had dried in his hairline, matted the black strands. She worked methodically, wiping away evidence of violence with cotton and antiseptic. You're good at this, Dojun observed quietly. Practice. My brother used to come home with construction injuries all the time. Cuts, burns. That one time he nearly lost a finger to a table saw. Nora's hands steadied with the familiar motions. I learned to be the medic. Tell me about him. So she did. Talked while she worked, applying butterfly bandages to hold the cut closed, checking his pupils for concussion signs her mother had taught her to recognize. She told him about Marcus, who'd loved demolition because it was controlled destruction, who'd sung Motown songs off-key while cooking Sunday breakfast, who'd worked himself to death trying to save their mother and left Nora completely alone. Dojun listened without interrupting. When she finished with his face, she noticed his knuckles. Let me see your hands. He extended them, and she carefully cleaned split skin and forming bruises. You hit someone. Several someones. No apology in his voice. The fire was professional, but the team that set it was still on scene, watching, enjoying their work. His jaw tightened. We had a conversation about appropriate behavior. Is that what you call it? Would you prefer I'd let them walk away? Nora should have been horrified. Should have recoiled from this man who spoke about violence like it was business. Instead, she found herself understanding the cold fury in his eyes, the protective rage that made him drive knuckles into flesh. No, she admitted quietly. I wouldn't. She finished bandaging his hands and stood. Stay there. I made dinner hours ago. I couldn't sleep, so I kept cooking. The kitchen smelled like comfort and home. She'd made galbi jim, the braised short ribs her mother used to prepare for Sunday dinners, slow-cooked until the meat fell from the bone. She brought 2 bowls to the living room, handed one to Dojun. He stared at the dish, something unreadable crossing his face. This is my mother's recipe. She learned it from a Korean neighbor in Detroit. Nora settled beside him, closer than before. Food is the best language for things you can't say with words. They ate in comfortable silence. Between bites, he taught her Korean phrases mashisoyo for delicious, komawo for thank you. She told him stories about her mother's jazz club, about the sound of her mother's voice turning standards into prayers. She would have liked you, Nora said, surprising herself. My mother, she had good instincts about people. What would she have thought about you working for someone like me? She would have said you can't judge a man by his job, only by how he treats people who can't fight back. Nora met his eyes. You could have thrown me to the Triad to save your warehouses, your men, your operations. You didn't. I don't negotiate with terrorists. But his voice softened. And you're under my protection. That means something. The space between them felt charged, electric. Dojun's gaze dropped to her mouth, and Nora's breath caught. He leaned forward slightly, tentative in a way that seemed foreign to his usual controlled certainty. She could feel his exhale against her lips, could smell smoke and antiseptic and something underneath that was just him. Every cell in her body screamed to close the distance. Nora pulled back. "I'm sorry," she whispered. It's too much, too fast. I don't know if what I'm feeling is real or just trauma bonding or—" "I understand." Dojin's voice was steady despite visible disappointment. "You're right. The timing is—" His phone erupted with shrill ringing. Minjun's name flashed on the screen. Dojun answered, listened for exactly 5 seconds. Then his expression went from disappointed to lethal. "When?" Pause. "Is she safe?" Another pause. "I'm on my way." He stood, already moving toward the door. "They hit my mother's house in Flushing. She's unharmed but shaken. I need to go." "I'll come with you," Nora said, already standing. "No. You stay here where it's secure." Dojin's voice was final. "This could be a diversion to draw me out. I won't risk you." He left with 4 men, moving with practiced urgency. The door closed, and Nora was alone again, trapped in luxury while war raged outside. She spent the rest of the night pacing, waiting for news, praying to a god she wasn't sure she believed in anymore. The call came at dawn. Minjun's voice. "We found something. You need to see this." Dojin's mother was safe, but the message left behind made Nora's blood run cold. Spray painted across the living room wall in red. "We know where your family sleeps." The call that broke everything came at 6:03 a.m. the next day. Nora woke to voices in the living room, sharp, urgent Korean punctuated by Minjun's distinctive cadence. She pulled on clothes and emerged to find the penthouse transformed into a war room. 6 men in dark suits surrounded the dining table, laptops open, faces grim. Dojin stood at the head, still wearing yesterday's clothes, looking like violence barely contained. "Miss Chen." Minjun noticed her first. "You should hear this." A thin man with wire-rimmed glasses, someone Nora had never seen before, gestured to his laptop screen. "I'm David Kim, Digital Forensics. For the past week, I've been tracking unauthorized data transfers from our secured network." His English was precise, academic. "Someone with high-level access has been systematically copying operational files and sending them to an encrypted server." He pulled up a cascade of code, timestamps, IP addresses. The encryption was sophisticated, routed through multiple proxy servers. But we traced the destination to a triad-controlled location in Flushing, and we identified the source device. David turned his laptop to face the room. On screen, a tablet registered to James Park. The temperature in the penthouse seemed to drop 10 degrees. "That's impossible," one of the older men said in Korean, then switched to English. "James has been with us for 12 years. He's family. He's also $240,000 in debt to a triad-controlled underground casino." David pulled up bank records, transaction histories, a financial portrait of systematic self-destruction. The gambling started 18 months ago. Small losses at first, then catastrophic. The triad offered him a deal, debt erasure plus 100,000 cash in exchange for intelligence on our operations. Dojun's hands curled into fists on the table surface. What did he give them? Everything. Shipping schedules, warehouse locations, security rotations, property holdings. David's voice remained clinical, but his expression showed disgust. "He enabled the car bomb by providing your routine schedule and vehicle information. He provided the warehouse location and guard shift patterns. David hesitated, glancing at Nora. He gave them Miss Chen's protection detail specifics, her location, building security protocols." Nora felt the floor tilt beneath her. James had smiled at her last week, had asked if she needed anything, played the concerned family member, all while selling her location to people who wanted her dead. "Where is he now?" Dojun's voice was deadly quiet. "We picked him up 20 minutes ago. He's downstairs in the garage. Bring him up." The wait felt eternal. Nora counted her own heartbeats, watched Dojun's face become a mask of cold fury. When the elevator finally opened, 2 guards escorted James Park between them. He still looked polished, pressed suit, styled hair, but fear had broken through the veneer. His eyes darted around the room, landing on Dojun with something between defiance and desperation. "Cousin," James started in Korean, then switched to English when Dojun's expression didn't change. Whatever you think. I think you sold us to the triad for gambling debts. Dojun's voice cut like glass. I think you enabled an assassination attempt on my life. I think you gave them information that got 5 of our men hospitalized. I think you endangered a woman under my protection. He stepped closer and James flinched. Tell me I'm wrong. James's defiance crumbled. You don't understand the pressure the debt was crushing me. They were going to kill me, Dojun. What was I supposed to do? Come to me. The pain in Dojun's voice made Nora's chest ache. I'm your family. I sponsored your college education. I gave you a position of trust. You could have asked for help. Help? James's voice rose, hysteria bleeding through. You mean charity? You mean being grateful while you treat me like hired help? I'm family, but you make me bow like I'm nothing. My American education means nothing to you. My language skills, my understanding of this country, you overlook all of it because I wasn't born into your inner circle. So you sold us to our enemies. I solved my problem the only way I could. James was shouting now, tears streaming down his face. You have everything, power, money, respect. I have debt and scraps from your table. They offered me a way out and I took it. You chose betrayal over loyalty. Dojun's voice dropped to a whisper more terrifying than any shout. You chose to endanger everyone I protect. You chose to help people who want to torture and kill an innocent woman. You put my mother at risk. My sister. He turned to Minjun. Remove him from all operations. Seize his assets to cover the organization's losses, and make sure everyone knows everyone that his gambling debts are now his alone. No family protection. No organizational backing. He wanted to solve his own problems. Let him. James collapsed to his knees. Please. Dojun. Please. They'll kill me without your protection. You should have thought of that before you betrayed us. Dojun nodded to the guards. Get him out of my sight. They dragged James to the elevator, his pleading echoing until the doors sealed shut. The conference room emptied quickly after, the men dispersing to handle damage control. Minjun touched Nora's shoulder gently as he passed. Give him space, but not too much. Nora found Dojun 30 minutes later in his private office, windows overlooking the Hudson River painted rose gold with sunrise. He sat in darkness except for that light, a glass of whiskey untouched on the desk beside him. Family photos lined one shelf, images of a younger Dojun with his sister, with James at what looked like a college graduation, with an elegant woman whose absence suddenly made sense. She didn't speak, just settled into the chair across from him, close enough to be present without crowding. He grew up like my brother, Dojun said finally, voice rough. After my father died, his family took me in for 6 months. We shared a room, shared meals, shared secrets the way children do. When they immigrated to New York, I helped them get established, paid for James's education because he was family. I'm sorry. I trusted him with everything. Dojun's hands clenched on the armrests. Let him see operations I hide from most people, and he sold it all for gambling debts and resentment I never knew existed. Nora reached across the space between them, took his hand carefully. His grip tightened immediately, holding on like she was an anchor in a storm. Family disappoints us, she said quietly, thinking of her father's abandonment, though she didn't know yet what she'd learn in Detroit. They fail us in ways strangers never could because we give them the power to hurt us deeply. But it doesn't mean we stop being strong. It means we learn who deserves our trust and who doesn't. Dojun looked at her then, really looked at her not as a witness to protect or an employee to manage, but as someone who understood his specific pain because she'd carried her own version. How are you not broken? Who says I'm not? Nora's smile was sad. I'm just good at hiding the cracks. He stood, pulled her up with him, and kissed her. Not the tentative, almost kiss from before, but something desperate and honest, tasting like whiskey and shared pain. Nora kissed him back, pouring weeks of fear and fury and unexpected connection into the contact. His hands found her waist, her jaw threading into her hair. She pulled him closer, needing this, needing him, needing to feel something other than terror. They made love as dawn painted the city gold, 2 people finding comfort in shared trauma, choosing connection over isolation. It was messy and human and real, not romance but something raw. Survival wrapped in intimacy, proof they were still alive despite everything trying to kill them. After, They lay tangled in sheets that cost more than Nora's monthly rent used to, watching morning break over Manhattan. Dojun's phone buzzed on the nightstand. He ignored it. It buzzed again, and again. Finally, he reached for it, read the message, and went completely still. "What?" Nora asked, dread pooling in her stomach. Dojun showed her the screen. Anonymous message with a single line of text. James Park found dead in Flushing. Apparent suicide. Triad doesn't leave loose ends. Attached, a crime scene photo showing James's body, a message carved into the wall above him. "You're next. We don't have time to mourn." Dojun's response to James's death came within minutes of the news. The Triad killed him to send a message. Now we send one back. Minjun arrived 20 minutes later with 3 other senior operatives and a laptop case. They transformed the dining table into a war room tactical maps, building schematics, satellite imagery spreading across expensive wood. Nora watched from the kitchen doorway, coffee cup forgotten in her hands. Golden Phoenix Casino, Atlantic City. Minjun pointed to a sprawling complex on the screen. Triad owns it through shell corporations. Wei Zhao runs operations from the penthouse level. Tuesday nights he hosts private VIP gambling events. High stakes, invite only. Security is heavy but predictable. Another operative, older with gray at his temples, added layers to the digital map. 3 primary entry points. Service entrance here, main floor access here, rooftop helipad here. Wei keeps 4 bodyguards minimum, but during VIP nights he brings in 12 additional security throughout the building. We're coordinating with the Shin family and the Jang organization. Dojun's voice was clinical, strategic. 30 men total. Minjun commands 10 through the service entrance, securing ground floor and preventing escape. I take 12 through main access, push to penthouse. The Shin family provides 8 for rooftop containment. Yakuza observers? Someone asked. 2 representatives, neutral witnesses to ensure terms are honored after. Dojun traced the route with his finger. We go in at midnight during the height of the gambling event. Wei won't risk shootout with civilian gamblers present bad for business, draws federal attention. He'll negotiate. And if he doesn't? Minjun's question hung heavy. Then we make him. Dojun's expression was carved from stone. One way or another. This ends Tuesday night. Nora set down her coffee cup with a sharp click. 6 pairs of eyes turned to her. You're planning to storm a casino with 30 armed men. Her voice came out steadier than she felt. People are going to die. Maybe dozens of people. And you're discussing it like you're planning a business acquisition. The room went silent. The operatives looked to Dojun, waiting. Miss Chen makes a valid point, the gray-haired man said carefully. Civilian casualties could. There won't be civilian casualties. Dojun interrupted. We time it for a lull between games, coordinate with our inside contact to evacuate VIP rooms under fire alarm protocols. This is surgical, not massacre. But people might still die. Nora moved closer to the table, to the maps that made violence look clean and organized. Your people, Triad soldiers. Is this who you are? Is this who I'm becoming by staying? Dojun stood, gestured for the others to leave. They filed out quickly. Minjun last, closing the door with quiet finality. Yes, Dojun's honesty cut like glass. This is who I've always been. I don't deal in abstract morality or comfortable ethics. I deal in survival and consequences. You chose to save me knowing nothing about me, not my name, not my world, nothing. Now you're upset about the aftermath of that choice. I saved a life, Nora shot back. I didn't sign up for gang warfare. You didn't sign up for anything. You were conscripted the moment you grabbed my arm. Dojun moved closer, voice softening but losing none of its intensity. The Triad won't stop. They've escalated past reason car bombs, kidnapping, arson, murder. Every day we wait, they hurt more people, burn more buildings. This isn't revenge, Nora. This is necessity. We end this or it ends us. Nora's hands clenched into fists. How many operations have been necessary over the years? How much blood is necessity worth? More than you want to know. Dojun didn't flinch from the question. I'm not a good man. I've done things that would horrify you, made choices that cost lives. My wife. His voice caught almost imperceptibly. She died because of this world, because someone wanted to hurt me and she was the easiest target. I won't make that mistake again. I won't lose someone else I care about because I wasn't willing to do what's necessary. The words hit like physical blows. The mention of his wife, the first time he'd spoken of her directly, made everything more real, more devastating. I'm complicit now, Nora said quietly. Just by being here, by working for you, by— She gestured at the rumpled sheets visible through his bedroom door. By being with you. I'm part of this. Yes. No sugarcoating, no gentle lies. You are— Nora moved to the windows, stared out at the city that didn't care about her moral crisis. If you're going to do this, I want to be there. Absolutely not. Not for the fighting. She turned to face him. For the negotiation. When you corner Wei Zhao, when you force terms, I want to be present. That's insane. You're not trained, not armed, not— I'm the reason this war started. Nora's voice strengthened. The Triad wants me dead or captured. Wei needs to see that I'm not cowering in some safe house. That I'm standing with you, making my own choices. Otherwise, this never ends. They'll always see me as a target instead of a person. Dojun stared at her like she'd suggested flying to the moon. You could die. One stray bullet, one aggressive bodyguard, one thing goes wrong. I could die in this penthouse if they breach security. I could die on the street if they find me. I could die 1,000 ways over the next decade living in fear. Nora met his gaze steadily. Or I can walk into that casino and show them I'm not afraid. That I made my choice and I'm living with it. This isn't bravery. This is suicide with extra steps. Maybe, but it's my suicide to risk. She moved closer to him, close enough to see the war happening behind his eyes. You said I'm not a victim anymore. Prove it. Let me be there. Let me face this like an adult instead of hiding like a child. Dojun was quiet for a long moment, jaw working. Finally, you stay behind me at all times. Minjun assigns you a bodyguard who doesn't leave your side. First sign of trouble, you evacuate immediately. And you do exactly what I say when I say it without question. Deal. You're insane. Probably. Nora almost smiled. When do we leave? 9 p.m. We'll arrive at 11:30. Move at midnight. Dojun pulled her closer, pressed his forehead against hers. If this goes wrong, it won't. If it does, he continued firmly, Minjun has instructions to get you out first. Your life over mine, over anyone's. That's non-negotiable. Nora wanted to argue, but the look in his eyes stopped her. Okay. The afternoon crawled past. Operatives came and went, finalizing details Nora didn't understand. She tried to eat, but food tasted like ash. Tried to read, but words blurred meaningless. Tried to pretend she wasn't terrified. At 8:45 p.m., Dojin emerged from his bedroom in black tactical clothing, weaponry hidden but present. He looked like what he was, a man preparing for violence. Last chance to change your mind, he said. Nora stood, wearing dark clothes Minjun had provided, bulletproof vest, uncomfortable but necessary under her jacket. I'm not changing my mind. They left in a convoy 3 black SUVs with tinted windows. Nora rode with Dojin and Minjun, watching Manhattan give way to New Jersey highways, then Atlantic City's faded glamour. The Golden Phoenix Casino rose against the night sky, all neon and false promises. Dojin checked his watch. 11:47 p.m. 13 minutes. Nora's heart hammered against the bulletproof vest. She thought about praying, but couldn't remember any prayers that fit this moment. The SUV pulled into the service lot. 8 men emerged from the other vehicles, checking weapons with practiced efficiency. Minjun issued final orders in Korean. Everyone nodded, grim and focused. Miss Chen. A young operative materialized beside her, barely older than James had been, but his eyes held combat experience. I'm Jin Woo. I stay with you. Where you go, I go. Understood? Understood. 11:58 p.m. 2 minutes. Dojin's hand found Nora's for a brief moment. Whatever happens in there, know that I— Don't! She interrupted. Don't say goodbye. We're both walking out of this. He nodded, squeezed her hand once, then released it. Midnight came with the precision of a death sentence. Dojun's phone displayed 12 hours when Minjun gave the signal. 30 men moved simultaneously, service entrance, main floor, rooftop access. Years of training compressed into choreographed violence. The casino's fire alarm screamed to life exactly as planned. VIP guests evacuating in controlled chaos, while operatives flooded corridors wearing maintenance uniforms over tactical gear. Nora stayed glued to Jinwoo's side, her bodyguard moving through the casino with silent efficiency. They took the service elevator with Dojin and 4 others, ascending toward the penthouse while her heart tried to punch through the bulletproof vest. The elevator opened to immediate gunfire. Jinwoo yanked Nora down as bullets punched through the elevator's back wall. Dojun and his men returned fire in precise 3-round bursts, advancing into the corridor with military precision. Bodies dropped triad guards who'd been waiting in ambush positions. The smell of gunpowder and blood filled the narrow space. "Stay behind me!" Jinwoo hauled Nora forward, using his body as a shield. They cleared the corridor room by room, encountering resistance that spoke to Wei Zhao's preparation. He'd known they were coming, had turned the penthouse level into a kill box. A door exploded outward. Triad soldiers emerged firing automatic weapons, muzzle flash strobing like lightning. One of Dojin's men went down, leg shattered. Another took rounds to his vest, the impact throwing him backward. Jinwoo shoved Nora into a doorway, his body covering hers as bullets chewed through drywall above their heads. Then Dojun was there, moving through the chaos like death choreographed. He put down 3 shooters with controlled pairs, center mass, mechanical, efficient, cleared the room in 15 seconds. Reloaded without looking, muscle memory from countless operations Nora would never know about. "Penthouse suite," Minjun's voice crackled through radio. Wei Zhao barricaded inside with 4 lieutenants, 5 hostiles total. They regrouped at the penthouse entrance reinforced door, electronic locks fried by their tech specialist. Breaching would mean close quarters hell. Dojun positioned his men, checked his weapon, caught Nora's eyes across the hallway. "Last chance," he mouthed. She shook her head. "No retreat. Not now." The breaching charge blew the door into twisted metal. Flashbangs followed, disorienting everyone inside. Dojin's team poured through the opening into a suite that looked like a war zone waiting to happen. Overturned furniture, armed men behind cover, and in the center of it all, Wei Zhao standing with a pistol, 4 lieutenants flanking him. Far enough. Wei's English was accented but clear. "Or everyone dies." Standoff. Guns pointed everywhere. 30 fingers on 30 triggers. One wrong move and everyone died. "This is between us." Dojin's voice cut through the tension. "Let's negotiate terms." "Terms?" Wei laughed, the sound harsh and mocking. "You storm my casino with an army and want to negotiate? You've already chosen war, Park." "I chose to end a war you started." Dojin lowered his weapon slightly, not surrender, but de-escalation. "Car bombs in Manhattan bring federal attention neither of us wants. Kidnapping, arson, targeting civilians, murdering my cousin, you've broken every code that keeps our world functioning. I'm here to restore order. By force. By necessity." Movement to the left. One of Wei's guards shifting position, trying to flank. Dojin saw it a split second too late. The guard lunged from cover, knife in hand, targeting Dojin's exposed side. Jinwoo's gun barked, but the angle was wrong. The blade caught Dojin above his right hip, punching through tactical clothing into flesh. Dojin dropped the guard with a point-blank shot, but the damage was done. Blood spread dark across his black clothing. He stayed upright through sheer will, weapon still raised, refusing to show weakness. "Boss!" Minjun started forward. "Hold position." Dojin's command came through gritted teeth. "Nobody moves." Wei Zhao watched the blood drip onto his carpet with cold calculation. "You're bleeding out, Park. Surrender the black girl and I let you leave alive." "No." Nora's voice surprised everyone, including herself. She stepped around Jinwoo before he could stop her, moving into Wei's line of sight. "I'm right here, but I'm not anyone's bargaining chip." Wei's eyes narrowed. "You brought your woman to business? How American." Nora switched to Mandarin, the language Marcus's girlfriend had taught her during long evenings over dumplings and stories, the words coming back with surprising clarity. "I'm the woman you failed to kill. The one who saw your car bomb and saved the man you wanted dead. Remember me?" Wei's expression flickered surprise that she spoke his language, rage that she used it to mock him. 3 Korean families stand with me tonight," Dojun said, blood soaking his side but voice steady. "Yakuza observers bear witness. You're isolated, Wei. Your casino is locked down. Federal agents will arrive within the hour because someone," He smiled without humor, triggered the silent alarm. You have minutes to accept terms or spend the rest of your life in American prison. The door opened. Two men in expensive suits entered Korean, older, radiating authority. Behind them, two Japanese men with Yakuza tattoos visible at their collars. Witnesses, neutral parties who could verify agreements and ensure compliance. Wei's jaw tightened. He was trapped and he knew it. What terms? He spat. Dojun swayed slightly, but his voice remained iron. Complete withdrawal from Manhattan and New Jersey territories. Recognition of established boundaries. All contracts against Nora Chen permanently canceled, witnessed, and sealed in blood oath. You return to your operations in Queens, and we don't burn them to ash. And if I refuse? Federal agents find dead Triad soldiers and evidence of your illegal casino operations. Your organization fractures. Your superiors in China disown you to avoid international incident. And I make sure everyone knows you failed to kill one waitress despite months of trying. Dojin's smile was predatory despite the blood loss. Or you take the deal, save face, and live to operate another day. The counting room behind them was visible through open doors. Stacks of cash, millions in unmarked bills. Wei's empire displayed in currency. He looked at the money, at his cornered men, at the witnesses who would report this confrontation to every criminal organization on the eastern seaboard. Fine. The word came out like broken glass. I accept your terms. The Korean elders produced ceremonial knives. Wei Zhao and Do Jun each made small cuts on their palms, blood oath, witnessed by neutral parties, binding in the codes that governed their world. The Yakuza representatives took photographs, documenting the agreement for their records. Wei's men lowered their weapons. The standoff dissolved into tense peace. Min-jun caught Do-jun as his legs finally gave out. Get him to the car. Now. Jinwoo swept Nora toward the exit. Behind them, Wei Zhao stood in his ruined penthouse, watching them leave with murder in his eyes that he could no longer act on. The drive back to Manhattan blurred into nightmare. Do-jun conscious but fading, Min-jun applying pressure to the knife wound while barking medical instructions. Nora held his hand, willing him to stay awake, stay alive, stay with her. Dawn broke over Manhattan as they reached the Tribeca penthouse. A doctor was waiting someone on Do-jun's payroll, no questions asked, no hospital records. But he assessed the wound and shook his head. He needs a hospital. This is beyond my... No hospitals. Do-jun's voice was weak but final. Treat it here. I can stitch the external wound, but if there's internal damage, then I deal with it. Do-jun's eyes found Nora's. No hospitals. No records. The doctor worked for 90 minutes. Nora assisted with shaking hands, following instructions, watching Do-jun's face go white with pain he refused to show. Finally, the stitching was complete. Antibiotics administered, bandages secure, bed rest for 2 weeks minimum, the doctor ordered. Any fever, any increased bleeding, you're risking death. He left. Min-jun disappeared to coordinate security. Jinwoo stationed himself outside the bedroom door. Suddenly it was just Nora and Do-jun in the aftermath of survival. She helped him to the bedroom, careful of the stitches pulling at his side. His skin was clammy, fevered, blood loss taking its toll. She removed his ruined tactical clothing with gentle precision, cleaned the blood that had spread beyond the bandages, covered him with sheets that would probably never be white again. It's over, Do-jun whispered, eyes closed. The blood oath is binding. Wei can't touch you now. You're free. Truly free. Nora settled beside him, her hand finding his. I don't know what freedom feels like anymore. You'll remember. Give it time. But lying there in the growing light, Nora realized she didn't want the freedom she'd had before. That terrified, isolated, struggling existence felt like someone else's life now. What comes next? She asked quietly. Do-jun opened his eyes, looked at her with an intensity that burned despite his weakness. That's your choice. Always has been. She leaned down and kissed him gently. I choose this. I choose you. Whatever that means. He smiled, the first genuine smile she'd seen from him. Good, because I love you, and I'm terrible at letting go of things I love. I love you too, she whispered, even though it's complicated and dangerous and probably insane, especially because of that. They stayed like that as morning light filled the room, two people who'd found each other through violence, and chosen to build something gentler from those ashes. 2 weeks crawled past. Dojin recovered in increments, fever breaking, stitches holding, strength returning slowly. Nora stayed, officially to assist with business operations remotely, actually because leaving felt impossible. She'd nurse him through nightmares, change bandages, bring soup he barely ate, and watch the scar form on his ribs, puckered flesh that would mark him forever. On day 15, he was finally able to sit up without grimacing. Nora brought breakfast on a tray juke, the rice porridge his mother had sent over, claiming ancient healing properties. "I have something for you." Dojin pulled a manila envelope from his nightstand, handed it to her with steady hands for the first time in 2 weeks. Nora opened it carefully. Legal documents, dense with language she had to read twice to believe. Paid in full stamped across 3 collection agency letterheads. Every cent of medical debt from her mother's final illness. Gone. Erased. Cancelled. "You said you wouldn't." Her voice broke. "I said I'd respect your choice not to accept charity." Dojun's expression was gentle. "This isn't charity. You've been working for me for 3 months. Earning salary. Demonstrating value. Consider this a performance bonus. Or back pay. Or whatever lets you accept it without feeling like you owe me." Nora stared at the documents through blurring vision. 3 years of crushing weight, of collection calls and garnished wages, of choosing between food and payments, just gone. She cried then. Really cried for the first time since watching her mother's casket lower into earth. Sobbed like something broken had finally been set free. Dojun pulled her close carefully, mindful of healing stitches, letting her soak his shirt with tears that tasted like grief and relief mixed together. "There's more," he said when she could breathe again. He produced a second envelope. "But this one might make you angry." The property deed inside made her stop breathing entirely. 127th Street. Ella's place. Her mother's jazz club, the one that had been shuttered and sold when medical bills consumed everything. "You bought my mother's club?" "I bought it, renovated it, and transferred ownership to your name." Dojin's voice was quiet. "It's yours, Nora. Free and clear. No strings. No expectations. What you do with it, reopen it, sell it, burn it down, that's entirely your decision." "Why?" The question came out strangled. "Because you told me about it that first night. When you were cooking through trauma and sharing stories. You described that club like it was holy ground." He touched her face gently. "This isn't about control. This is about honoring who you are and where you came from. Your mother built something beautiful. You deserve the chance to carry that forward or let it rest, but that choice should be yours." Nora looked at the deed, at her name printed in official legal text. Eleanor Ella Chen's dream, passed to her daughter like inheritance should work not through death and debt, but through intention and love. "I don't know what to say." "Then don't say anything. Just accept it." A week later, Nora stood outside her new apartment in Hell's Kitchen, small, 6th floor walk-up, 800 square feet that was entirely hers. Not luxury, not protection. Just space she could afford with her legitimate salary and shape according to her own needs. Dojin had driven her to see it, helped her sign the lease, then surprised her by agreeing immediately when she said she needed to move out of the penthouse. "You need your own space," he'd said. "We both do. Partnership doesn't mean possession." She moved with minimal belongings. Most of what she owned had been lost when she was evicted from her previous apartment. Min Jun had managed to retrieve a few boxes from storage. Some clothes, a handful of books, her mother's framed photo. She furnished the new place with second-hand finds and basics, hung her mother's picture above the couch, made it home. But 3 nights a week, she stayed with Do Jun. And 2 nights he came to her place, squeezing into her modest space, eating takeout, learning to exist in her world instead of always pulling her into his. Work continued. She proved her value, daily expanding Korean barbecue operations, developing fusion concepts that bridged cultures, becoming someone the Korean business community actually respected. Not as Dojin's girlfriend, though rumors circulated. As Nora Chen, strategist who understood markets they couldn't access alone. 6 weeks post-casino, she visited Ella's place for the first time. The renovation was beautiful, respectful of history, while updating infrastructure. Her mother's original piano, somehow located and restored. The stage where legends had performed. The bar where whiskey and stories mixed until dawn. She stood on the empty stage, closed her eyes, and heard her mother's voice singing Strange Fruit, like prophecy and prayer combined. You planning to reopen? Dojin's voice came from the doorway. He'd followed her in silence, letting her have this moment. I think so. Not yet. But someday. Nora turned to face him. Thank you. For this. For everything. You saved my life. He moved closer. Everything since is just trying to balance that debt. You don't owe me. I know. But I choose to give anyway. He kissed her then, soft and certain. That's what people do when they love each other. The words still felt new, terrifying, absolutely true. I love you too, Nora whispered. They were standing in the golden late afternoon light, planning a future that felt possible for the first time, when Nora's phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something, instinct, paranoia, fate made her pick up. Nora Chen? The voice was female, professional, unfamiliar. Who's asking? My name is Sarah Chen. I'm an attorney. I'm calling regarding your father. Nora's blood went cold. My father left when I was 12. I haven't heard from him in 15 years. I understand. But Miss Chen, I need to inform you that your father passed away 3 weeks ago, and his will names you as sole beneficiary of his estate. His estate? Nora laughed without humor. He was a gambling addict who abandoned his family. What estate? That's what I need to discuss with you, preferably in person. The attorney's voice carried strange weight. Your father wasn't who you thought he was. And what he left behind. She paused. Miss Chen, can you come to Detroit? There are things you need to see, and people who've been waiting a very long time to meet you. Detroit yielded secrets Nora wasn't prepared for. Her father, the gambling addict who'd abandoned his family, had actually been working deep undercover for the FBI for 15 years. The gambling debts were cover. The abandonment was protection. He'd infiltrated a criminal organization so dangerous that contact with his family would have gotten them killed. He died taking down that organization, and his estate was a safety deposit box containing letters he'd written every year on her birthday, never sent. 15 years of love wrapped in silence and sacrifice. Agent Sarah Chen, no relation, but the FBI handler assigned to close out his case handed Nora the stack of letters with gentle hands. He talked about you constantly, about how proud he was, about how much he wished he could have been there, about how the hardest part of his assignment wasn't the danger, but knowing his daughter thought he didn't love her. Nora read every letter through tears that wouldn't stop. Dear Nora, you're 13 today. I hope you're doing well in school. I hope your mother told you I love you, even though I can't be there to say it myself. Dear Nora, you're 21 today. I heard about your brother. I'm so sorry I couldn't be there. I'm so sorry for everything. Dear Nora, you're 25 today. I hope you're still dreaming about opening your own restaurant. I hope you're happy. I hope someday you'll understand why I had to leave. The revelation shattered and rebuilt her understanding of abandonment in a single afternoon. Her father hadn't left because he stopped caring. He'd left because he cared too much to let his dangerous work destroy them. She stayed in Detroit for a week, meeting FBI agents who'd worked with her father, learning about the 15-year operation that had dismantled a human trafficking network operating across 3 states. They showed her commendations, testimony from people he'd saved, evidence of sacrifices he'd made in silence. When she finally returned to New York, Dojin was waiting at the airport. She walked into his arms and cried again, not from grief this time, but from understanding. From knowing that sometimes love required distance, that sometimes the people who seemed to abandon us were actually protecting us in ways we'd never know. I'm okay, she told him as they drove back to Manhattan. Better than okay, actually. I have closure now. Real closure. My father loved me. He never stopped loving me, and that changes everything. But that was 3 weeks ago. Tonight was about different kinds of rebuilding. 3 months after the car bomb that changed everything, Nora stood in Moonflower's restored dining room wearing an emerald silk dress that made her skin glow like burnished gold. Her natural hair fell in goddess locks past her shoulders, a style she'd been too afraid to wear when she was just a waitress worried about tips and conformity. Now she wore her crown unapologetically. The restaurant had been rebuilt over the summer, Dojin quietly funding the repairs while ensuring the 3 injured employees received full medical coverage and salary continuation during their recovery. Jiwon, Marcus, the line cook, and young Hee were all back at work, healthy and grateful. Tonight was the grand reopening, and it felt like resurrection. Dojin stood beside her in a tailored charcoal suit, the scar on his ribs hidden beneath expensive fabric. He looked every inch the successful businessman, nothing about him suggesting the violence he was capable of. His hand rested lightly on the small of her back, present but not possessive, proud but letting her lead. "You ready for this?" he murmured in Korean. "As ready as I'll ever be," she replied in the same language, the phrases coming more naturally now after 3 months of practice. Mr. Choi approached with a microphone, his smile genuine and warm. The restaurant was packed 200 guests, representing Korean business communities, legitimate and otherwise. They'd come to celebrate Moonflower's resurrection, but also to witness something unprecedented: a black woman being formally recognized as family by a Korean organized crime family. "Ladies and gentlemen," Mr. Choi began in Korean, then switched to English. 3 months ago, this restaurant nearly died in flames, set by our enemies. But before that night of fire, there was a night of salvation. Nora Chen, who worked these floors with grace and dedication, saw danger when trained men missed it. She acted without hesitation, saving the life of a man who has become like a son to me. He gestured to Nora. "In Korean culture, we have a concept, yunhai. It means the debt of gratitude for saving a life. But Miss Chen has become more than someone we owe. She has proven her value, her intelligence, her loyalty. Tonight, we formally recognize her as Shikgu family, not by blood, but by choice and respect." The applause was thunderous. Korean businessmen who'd initially viewed her with suspicion now bowed in genuine respect. She'd earned this, not through Dojun's protection, but through 3 months of work that expanded their operations and bridged cultural divides they couldn't cross alone. Nora accepted the honor with a short speech in careful Korean, thanking them for accepting an outsider into spaces typically closed to anyone not born into the culture. When she finished, elderly Korean women, the real power brokers in any community, approached to embrace her. One whispered in her ear, "Your mother would be proud." The words broke something open in her chest. They stayed for an hour, then slipped away as the celebration continued. Dojin's driver navigated them uptown, where a different kind of resurrection awaited. Ella's place glowed like a jewel against the night. The marquee her mother had commissioned in 1987, now restored to neon glory, announced, "Grand Reopening, Ella's Place, Jazz and Soul." 50 guests milled outside, musicians, neighbors, old friends who remembered when Eleanor Chen's voice could make grown men cry into their whiskey. Nora stood on the sidewalk, looking at her mother's dream brought back from death, and felt Dojun's hand find hers. "You did this," he said quietly. "Not me. You made the choices that brought this place back to life." Inside, the club was intimate perfection. Round tables with white tablecloths, the restored piano gleaming under stage lights, a jazz quartet warming up with soft standards. The original photographs of legends who'd performed here, her mother standing among them, impossibly young and alive. Nora moved through the crowd in a daze, accepting congratulations, hugging people who'd known her mother, feeling history and future collapse into this singular present moment. At 10 p.m., she took the stage. The quartet fell silent. Every conversation stopped. 50 pairs of eyes focused on Eleanor Chen's daughter standing in Eleanor Chen's spotlight. "Thank you for coming," Nora said, voice steadier than she felt. "My mother opened this club 40 years ago because she believed jazz was how black folks talked to God when prayer wasn't enough. She believed music could heal what words couldn't reach. She believed in creating space for beauty in a world that often felt too harsh to survive." She switched to Korean for one sentence, and she would have loved seeing how different worlds can come together to create something new. Dojin sat at a corner table, not dominating the space but present. Their eyes met across the crowded room. Nora turned to the quartet. "My mother's signature song was Summertime. She sang it the night she met my father, the night I was born, the last night she performed before cancer took her voice." She took a breath. "I'm going to sing it for her now. A cappella. No instruments. Just her voice carrying her mother's legacy into a room that remembered when that legacy was alive." Summertime and the livin' is easy. Fish are jumpin' and the cotton is high. Her voice wasn't technically perfect like her mother's had been, but it carried truth, every word weighted with loss and survival and hard-won peace. By the final verse, half the room was crying openly. The other half was smiling through tears, remembering. The applause was reverent. Nora bowed, stepped off stage, and found Dojun waiting. He handed her a wrapped package. Open it. Inside, a framed photograph she'd never seen. Her mother on stage at Ella's place, circa 1985, mid-song with her eyes closed and face luminous with joy. Professional quality, perfectly preserved. Found it in a storage unit owned by a jazz photographer who documented the scene, Dojun said. Took 6 weeks to track down, but I thought you should have it. Nora's vision blurred. Thank you. For this. For everything. You've thanked me enough. This is just me loving you. Midnight found them on Ella's place rooftop, overlooking the lights. The celebration continued below, muted jazz filtering up through floorboards, but up here it was just them and the city and silence. I never wanted to be saved, Nora said, leaning against the railing. I built my whole identity on not needing rescue, on being strong enough to carry everything alone. I know. But I'm glad I found you. Glad I grabbed your arm that night, even though it destroyed my life, and rebuilt it into something I don't recognize. She turned to face him. I choose this. Consciously. Not because I'm trapped or dependent or rescued, but because partnership is stronger than isolation. Because loving you makes me more myself, not less. Dojun pulled her close, careful and certain. You saved me first, in more ways than you know. I was half dead when you found me, not from the bomb, but from living in a world where trust was weakness and connection was liability. After my wife died, I convinced myself that loving someone was just giving your enemies ammunition. You taught me that some things are worth the risk. They kissed on the rooftop of her mother's club, two people who'd found each other through violence and chosen to build something gentler from those ashes. The guests departed slowly. By 2 a.m., Ella's place was empty except for Nora. She sent Dojun home with promises to follow soon, needing this moment alone. She sat at her mother's piano, touched the keys gently. The ivory was cool and smooth, holding 40 years of music in its grain. She played a simple melody chopsticks, the first thing Marcus had taught her before he died. I made it, Mama, she whispered to the empty club. We made it. For a moment, she could swear she felt her mother's hand on her shoulder, could smell the perfume Eleanor Chen wore for performances, could hear her voice saying what she'd always said. Baby girl, you are stronger than you know. Nora was locking up when she noticed the envelope tucked under the front door. Plain white, her name written in unfamiliar handwriting. No postage, no return address. Hand-delivered. Her hands shook as she opened it. Inside, a single photograph. Recent, taken with a telephoto lens. Nora and Dojun entering Moonflower earlier tonight. Her in the emerald dress. Him with his hand on her back. No message. No threat. Just the photograph proving someone had been watching. She flipped it over. On the back, written in careful English, your father's work isn't finished. They're still out there. And now they know about you. A friend. Nora's phone rang. Unknown number. She answered with trembling fingers. Miss Chen? A man's voice, American accent, professionally calm. This is Special Agent David Morrison, FBI. I know it's late, but I need you to listen very carefully. Your father's last case, the organization he infiltrated, we didn't get everyone. And someone just accessed a classified file with your current address and known associates. I'm sending a protective detail to your location now. Do not leave the building. Do not trust anyone you don't know. And Miss Chen? The agent paused. Your connection to Dojun Park makes you valuable in ways you don't understand yet. We need to talk, immediately. The line went dead. Nora stood alone in her mother's club, photograph in one hand, phone in the other, sirens beginning to wail somewhere in the night. She'd thought the war was over. She'd thought she was finally safe. She'd been wrong. But this time, she wasn't alone. This time, she had Dojun. She had Minjun and his team. She had a family, both her mother's legacy and the Korean community that had accepted her. And most importantly, this time she knew who she was. Not a victim, not a waitress, not someone who needed saving. She was Nora Chen, and she was ready for whatever came next. Where are you watching from? This story is traveling across the globe. Drop a comment below and let us know where you're tuning in from. If you're loving this saga of courage, culture, and unexpected love, hit that subscribe button right now, smash the like, and share